I literally heard it, not even through our headphones. I was like, somebody in Washington just said penis just now. I felt it in the force.
Tales from the Ditch, returning to you now. Sean and Seth. We have Michelle, the mother of dragons, back on. This is the second time she's on. How are you doing?
Woo! I'm doing great. Thank you.
There you go. Usually our guests are so lethargic, like they're on Valium or something, but she's actually excited.
Well, Michelle, thanks for coming back. And I'm just going to introduce you again, just in case people didn't hear the first episode. You are a foreign missionary, Bible translator, and celebrity, right?
I do work in Bible translation, though I am not the translator itself. And yes, I was on Survivor season 33, Millennials vs. Gen X.
Awesome. Which is where you got the Mother of Dragons title.
That is where it happened.
And so we talked about it in the last episode. People can look it up. I think it was episode 49. But you got that because you were defending, to some extent, the existence of dragons.
Yes.
Like
all good
on
Christians
our planet.
should.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is actually kind of a minority position to be held both in non-Christian and Christian culture sometimes. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So, I am curious, since we've kind of talked about this, what are some other interesting, existences of creatures such as dragons or dinosaurs or any of like that you may have come into contact with that you haven't been able to explain fully, whether on Survivor or on a podcast or whatever?
Okay.
What a good
for the
question.
record, I've never come in contact with a dragon or dinosaur.
Wink, wink, we gotcha. All right.
No, yeah, as I had stated in the previous podcast, that even Carl Sagan, obviously not a Christian, but wrote a book on how dragons and dinosaurs seem to be the same creature. All the myths about dragons seem to talk about dinosaurs. And without archaeology being a major thing, before, 200 years ago, somehow people were still able to describe dinosauric creatures. So there's this whole world of what do they call it? Cryptozoology, I think.
Sure.
Which is, new word if you're not familiar. Cryptozoology is the study of, bizarre or mythical or lesser documented creatures. Some of them end up being real creatures, like a weird mix between, maybe like a liger or something that is now more commonly accepted.
Most magical creature.
But other cryptozoology stories and research is about things like Sasquatch and, dinosaurs and stuff. And, one of the places that it's interesting, one of the places that, dinosaurs have been spotted a lot in recent history, is Papua New Guinea. And
interesting.
Isn't it interesting? Now, the interesting thing about Papua New Guinea, it's an incredibly diverse country. Geographically, it's the size of California.
What?
But geographically the size of California. However, there are 860, that's 860, distinct languages. Those are not dialects. Those are 860 distinct languages. Many of those have many dialects.
Jeez.
So it's a crazy place. Also, there are different, flora, different plants and everything that only exist within a 5-mile radius of a certain location. There's a bunch of crazy cool stuff going on in Papua New Guinea. As I alluded to earlier, there's also been pterodactyl sightings. Now I can't confirm or deny any of this, though my husband has worked with a man who says he saw one back in the 70s. Now, no idea. That guy never came forth, and he will never come forth because he doesn't want to be seen as a crazy weirdo. And so, but it's also interesting that the local people, years ago, some of the local people had been, interviewed, and they said that I don't know if they said 20-foot bat or something would come and dig up their dead people, like their dead bodies, and eat them and drag them off.
Nice.
Now, I can't confirm or deny that, but it is kind of funny because also in that culture in Papua New Guinea, my husband has been working in that country for about 8 years, and I have gone to work with him once, last year, in Papua New Guinea. The people there, a lot of times will really strive hard to give you the answer that you want. So if they know you're looking for dinosaurs, they will say, oh, well, maybe over here, or like try to help you, even if they know they've never seen a dinosaur.
Huh.
And so this would happen they would even point out certain spots to dig up. They say, oh, dig over here, you might find a buried one. And the people are digging, the Westerners, the researchers are there digging and digging and digging all day long. And of course, they never found anything. But it's interesting too, because my husband is a, linguistic anthropologist. So he studies the languages. And, this is mostly for the purpose of Bible translation or different, humanitarian work like that in the area. And, he will go in and he can always tell which other Westerners these people have come in contact with in the past. Because he'll come in just wanting to learn about their language, just asking them questions about, how do you say this? What's your word for that? And so forth. And they'll start telling him all sorts of crazy stuff that they think he maybe wants to know, because maybe they've had a dinosaur researcher come in and try to ask them questions. So as he's asking them, hey, how do you say ear? They start saying, well, an ear on a dinosaur would look like this. They start giving him, bizarre answers. And the same thing, they had a botanist one time. They had spoken to a botanist. So instead of telling him the words he wanted, they kept wanting to show him all the flowers and all of the trees and all that. And the same thing with mining. Sometimes they'll think he's maybe looking for gold or different mining, prospects. So, he gets some funny answers.
We could ride a dinosaur, Sean. I want to ride a dinosaur. This is amazing.
We gotta go to Papua New Guinea.
I'm
they can at least tell us
already
the area. That
I don't care if they lie to me. I want them to enable me completely in this. They can tell me whatever they want. I'm gonna ride a pterodactyl.
So
Take that, Dad.
I'm fairly convinced that the behemoth that's discussed in the Bible in Job had to be like a brontosaurus or something like that.
It has to be. It says its tail was like a tree trunk.
That's what I say. Yeah, that its tail was like a tree trunk. People say, "Oh, it's a hippo or a crocodile." I don't think those things are true about those animals. It was clearly a dinosaur. I feel like the Leviathan too could be a lot of things, but I believe, like, when they talk about a sea monster, I believe in a sea monster, not something that's kind of big.
Right. I also, didn't it say that, like, it can shoot sparks or something out of its mouth or something? I don't know.
Yeah, fire breathing.
It's a chaos monster. Hey, before we get into serious stuff, I actually, there's a question I wanted to ask her last time, because I felt like we got into all the Survivor stuff. Growing up, did you get into trouble, or were you pretty good? Did you get in fistfights or anything, or like run drugs for a cartel or anything? Or were you like pretty good, like following God, pretty responsible, or did you ever steal a cop car? I just kind of want, so our listeners can get to know you better.
Okay, well.
That's a yes on the cop car.
I was a homeschooled preacher's daughter. And for the first 18 years of my life, or maybe about then, I think I was too scared of punishment to act out. And so I was pretty straight-laced. After that, when I was off on my own, I finally got to be the pastor's daughter that I was in my heart. And then I really wasn't following Christ actually until I was about 23 or 24. So, and that was kind of a dramatic, drastic, night and day transformation. So kind of cool because, I had a lot of head knowledge that very obviously didn't translate into into real life,
I can
or
relate.
any sort of heart, love, joy, peace, patience. The things you read about just were not present. And so, so there was a dramatic change when I was about 24.
I just wanted to know. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say a little bit actually, like Footloose, where like the girl, your daughter wants to dance. I wasn't allowed to dance growing up, and then I became a dance instructor a couple years later.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then beautiful ending of the story. My parents ended up taking my dance class.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Wait, so you weren't allowed to dance for the same reasons as Footloose? Because it leads to moral ambiguity?
Yeah.
It leads to Kevin. It leads to Kevin Bacon. That's why she wasn't allowed to.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I was just wondering. I was like hoping. I was like, maybe she got in a bar fight once and yelled "Mother of Dragons" and then hit someone with a chair. I was like, that would just be crazy. But the Footloose story is still cool because it does lead to Kevin Bacon. That's proven in Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. But, no joke though. You're not messing with us. You weren't allowed to dance.
Correct.
Wow.
Okay.
That's ultra reform.
I just wasn't allowed to listen to like rap or punk, and I would just tape over it on fake tapes and put a different cover in. But okay, well there you go.
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons, and my parents weren't
Yeah,
Christians.
you did.
But yeah, I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons just because. I think for the same reason that you weren't allowed to dance. Parents are afraid that Simpsons is going to lead to some type of terrible failure of integrity, or Kevin Bacon, yes. Which The Simpsons does lead to Kevin Bacon.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Well, now, so you became a Christian for real, which is awesome, and then joined the mission field in foreign missions.
I joined Pioneer Bible Translators.
So what are some of the craziest things you've seen out there in the mission field?
Oh man. So, okay. So my first, so I've had to work, I don't know, in maybe 5 or 6 different countries, something like that. And they're not like the normal countries. These are like the countries you've never heard of sort of countries. And one of them being Papua New Guinea. We'll go back there for this first story here. It was interesting. There's a lot of planes that you got to get from a small town in Washington to a small village in Papua New Guinea. And I think my planes were Yakima to Seattle, Seattle to Taipei, Taipei to Hong Kong to Port Moresby, Port Moresby to Wewak, and then Wewak out into the jungle like a private little plane. Are
you making up towns at this point? That sounds...
No, these are the names. Those are the names. Wewak is a place. Not to be confused with Ukarumpa or any of those other names in the similar area.
I'll never forget my summer and Oompa Loompa.
Good old Oompa Loompa, yeah.
So my husband and I step off the plane, and the first thing I see is a woman breastfeeding a pig. I expected a woman to be topless. That happens all the time, right? Topless women are out there. That's fine. I did not expect there to be a baby pig in the equation.
Yeah.
And so,
a pig as in, well.
Yeah, like an oink oink animal.
Yeah.
She's holding it. She's breastfeeding it, kind of like a human baby, but a pig. And so I wish I would have known the culture better. So they love pictures taken of them, as long as you show them afterwards. I didn't know that at the time. I'd been in like Papua, the Indonesian side of the same continent, but I hadn't been in this location, and so I didn't know I could take a picture. I should have taken a picture, but frame that and put it up in my living room. But now that seems like weird or funny or gross. I don't know. It kind of seems like all these things, until you find out why. Now this is actually like super beautiful, because while we were there, or like the day before or something, or I don't know, within the 3 days or so that we were staying in that village, there was a woman that died while giving birth. And so, there was, which is a very, that happens out in
sure,
the jungle. You're hundreds of miles from the nearest hospital. There's no roads, so you can't get there. There's nothing, there's no way to get anywhere. But the baby survived. But now, who can feed the baby? Only the women who have been keeping their milk being produced by feeding baby pigs.
Oh.
So,
Whoa.
yeah.
Now I feel like a jerk for judging them.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Wait
right?
a minute. So there's a group of women who just keep the milk production going all the time just in case a mother dies
just
in childbirth.
Somebody
oh my
dies.
gosh.
She's going to take care of the kid. Yeah.
Man, I can't even remember to turn off the lights all the time, and they're still
That's
crap.
crazy. Oh
Makes
my
me
gosh.
feel immature. Dang.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so this is like kind of organized through the village? Every village
You know,
has
I
these
don't know.
groups of people, or?
I assume so. But I don't know how organized. I don't know if it's like a drawing every month, like, all right, it's Betty's turn. Like, I don't know how, I don't know how organized it is, but, it's at least common enough that even a tiny village has at least one woman breastfeeding a pig.
Wow. That is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just thought they, really took care of their pigs. They just really cared about pigs. I mean,
pigs are very valuable there. The coolest man in the village is the one that has 5 or 6 pigs. So
I want to be that man.
We could be kings.
We could be kings there. Oh, geez.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
So, and is it? I mean, did you ask around about this? Is it kind of more difficult to breastfeed a pig than a human child?
I would assume so.
Because pigs eat people. I mean, they use pigs to get rid of evidence in some countries.
Yeah, America. It's America. You're thinking of America. That's what mobsters do. The mafia.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I would assume you got to be pretty careful there.
Wow.
So, and obviously I've never tried it, so I don't have firsthand experience to share, but the pigs are treated really well over there. So
Seth's actually writing this on his bucket list right now. Breastfeed a pig.
I want to be part of this. I want to be part of something bigger than me. That's what I'm thinking.
That is crazy.
That's one way to help your community, and no one can make fun of you for it. Because you're like, no, it's to help orphans.
Sean will find a way to make fun of me. He'll find. Do they still eat bacon? Do they still eat it, or?
Oh man. Okay. Oh, the best pork I've ever had was in Papua New Guinea. It could have been starving and you only eat once a day and you're hiking all day long, so you're very hungry. But somebody had caught or had killed a wild boar and gave me a huge plate of lard. But in that lard, there was a tiny little bit of the best tasting pork I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
Was this wild boar breastfed or formula?
It was cage free, actually.
Okay, that's good. See, that's good.
It was out there in the jungle.
Okay, I feel better about that then. That helps my paleo diet. So.
Do you know? I'm just curious because I like barbecuing and pork. Do you know how they cooked it?
Yeah, they dig a hole in the ground and they put the animal in there, and then they also put a bunch of bananas and lizards and everything else they've caught or killed that day. And some of those lizards, it's crazy how big lizards get. So they've got lizards in there, they've got maybe birds. If they had birds, they got fish, they got bananas, and then they light a fire on top of it. And then they kind of cook it all day long, and then y'all eat it in the evening.
What's the weirdest animal you've eaten? Because when I was in Thailand, I had monkey, and that's probably the weirdest. What's the weirdest you've had? Because monkey, it was nothing to write home about, but I was hungry. On a mission trip, what's the weirdest food where you're like, I can't believe I ate this?
Okay, so for me, it's not that bad. For me, it was in East Asia and at an undisclosed location.
Of course.
And it was larvae. Just some larvae that, your run-of-the-mill larvae. And so just little, wormy things. So it wasn't that bad. I mean, I wouldn't, make it for a potluck or anything.
Yeah.
But my husband, on the other hand, he, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the P word on here. Can I say penis?
Yes.
Wait, what word did she say?
She said penis. Husband... I can recognize the word penis from 1,000 decibels away.
Oh, yeah. Our last episode, we had to bleep our guests like 800 times because
and I still missed some bleeps.
He's my non-Christian kickboxing coach who used to get in brawls. That was, we had worse than that on this show. Okay. I didn't hear it. I was all, Peter? I was like, we could talk about people named Peter. You have, okay, so continue. So we know it. For those who are shy, the P word. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. So, my husband was in a village and, a couple of the men asked him if he wanted to go out and help them hunt for crocodiles. And so the way they do this is they get into a dugout canoe and they actually, it's interesting because they make use of modern technology, at least in a flashlight. So they take a flashlight out with them in the dark in a swamp at night, and they shine the light around. It takes 3 people to do this, I guess. It takes, one person has like this huge javelin spear type thing and the flashlight. The next person has a hatchet, and the last person, it's their job just to make sure the canoe doesn't tip over. So they're back there trying to keep it steady. These are canoes like made out of just like a piece of wood that's been hollowed out. And you're all standing in the canoe. So it's like this weird, they got really great balance.
Okay.
And they went out and, you shine the flashlight around and you look for, the flashlight will reflect off of eyes. And so you look around until you find a crocodile with eyes that are not terribly far apart.
This
so that
sounds
means it's
terrifying. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. You look for something that's not terribly huge. And for the most part that works. He said one time though they had like what would you call it? Like a huge crocodile with close set eyes. So they got in on something they didn't mean to. But, they came up to it, and the person with the javelin throws the javelin into the crocodile and holds it, as the crocodile then starts writhing around and, trying to get away. And he's I guess if you have a block of wood, they try to throw a block of wood in its mouth right there, because otherwise it's just chomping around at everything. But if it grabs a block of wood, it'll think it has something, so it'll stay locked on that. And then once it starts to get tired, the person with the hatchet jumps in the water with the crocodile and hacks its spinal cord, until it's dead. And so,
jeez.
Then, they caught like 3 or 4 little crocs and they brought them up onto the shore, and now they're going to start dressing it, cause they got to feed the whole village. So but they get excited and the men pull the crocodiles up on shore and they immediately flip them over and start cutting off the genitalia. And my husband thinks, get rid of that. And then they excitedly go put the crocodile penises on the coals that are simmering, and they just heat them up a little bit. And then, since my husband was the guest of honor, he got the biggest one.
Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
So, So
wow.
he takes home, as far as weird things being eaten, he takes home the prize between the two of us.
I've gotten in a slap fight with a dolphin, but this is way better.
Not just a crocodile penis, but a seared crocodile.
Gosh.
Tender.
Yeah.
And he got the biggest one, which is also awesome.
I would say I'll just
So
die. Yeah, I'll just die. Oh my goodness. That sounds terrible. You're fighting crocodiles in the dark.
Dude, and you're looking for the eye. You know that scary reflection in the eyes? Like when it happens with dogs' eyes all the time in the dark, and you're like, demon. And you have to jump in the water with a hatchet?
I had a raccoon growl at me and I ran, and I'm pretty sure I had a weapon. This is, that's terrifying. All for crocodile genitalia. Cause I'm still in 4th grade and I think this is funny. Oh my goodness. No. Well, okay.
That's pretty sweet.
She beat me. Yeah. I got nothing for that. Should we maybe, go ahead.
Here's a segue. Here's something, because, on the topic, I'm going to start a topic of like church differences or like issues in the church.
All right.
And my most recent trip was to West Africa. And, we were talking to one of the church leaders there, and, me and my like Westerner friends, we'd been talking a little bit about issues within the American church. And the African pastor chimed in and said, yes, we have issues like this too. And so we all listened like, okay, what do you got? And he says, we had a man who was an elder for 5 years and he still owned a Cobra.
Oh yeah, same
That
thing.
was-
Like the car?
He still owned a Cobra. And so we're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what'd you do? This sounds tough.
Yeah.
Like, church discipline, like what'd you have to do? What'd you have to do? And he said that they went there and they killed the Cobra.
What?
Yeah.
That is
Yeah,
extreme.
I don't know. I know.
Creflo Dollar has a jet. This guy has a Cobra. Same thing. Not any different. Same thing. Who are we to say? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So they weren't fooling around.
I hope
Yeah.
they put in their bylaws or maybe their ancient confession that cobras are not allowed, because I would not receive that rebuke well.
You must be an elder of 0 snakes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Well, you know what? I mean, that's their struggle, I guess. I don't know. Is that what I'm supposed to say? I guess. I don't know.
Is there a cultural relevance to owning a cobra?
Well, okay. The best thing we could come up with. So the location that we were in is heavily voodoo, like voodoo capital of the world, and so we're thinking it has something to do with that. Maybe one of your spirits or something. Maybe a strong spirit is in a cobra, and that's how you get close to it or something. We're not exactly sure, but it's something like that.
See that?
I feel like there's some southern Eastern American churches where owning a cobra would be totally okay in the church, and you bring it into the church.
Those are the weird white folk, though. They're handling snakes. They're trying to
The
snap at them.
dusties.
The dusty whites. That's man. Well, all right. So this is why I wanted to ask Sean, because we've all had fun. We've all been great here. But how do you want to segue into a more serious discussion? I want to give it the gravity it deserves. Because I know we joke a lot, but when there's certain things I think deserve a little bit of seriousness or a little bit of reverence. So, and it's funny me saying this, but I don't.
Yeah. So kind of, I think in the vein of discussing the kind of craziest, wackiest types of parts of being a foreign missionary. We obviously know, we know even not being foreign missionaries that there's a more serious part. And we know that one of them is near and dear to your heart and our heart too when we saw the news. And we saw this news come out, Seth, when it was right when we were ending our first season of Tales from the Ditch.
Yeah,
and so,
it was before the break, maybe November, or December.
It was
I don't
like
know.
November, December, something like that. And it was all over the news.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the way the news media works, it was only in the news for a couple of days. And a bunch of people on the internet had a lot of opinions about it and then forgot all about it. And here we are in February of the next year. And I don't know that anybody's still talking about it, but we think, and I know you think too, Michelle, that it deserves, some more discussion. So we, are wondering what opinion and, maybe, just general information you can share from your perspective as a foreign missionary and working for a Bible translation organization, on John Chau, the missionary that was killed, late last year.
Yeah. So John Chau, was killed in November off the coast of India in the Andaman Islands, specifically North Sentinel Island, where really the last uncontacted people live. And when I say uncontacted, I don't mean they've absolutely never had contact. They've had little tiny instances of contact, but no one has ever, until John Chau, walked onto their island and stayed there. So I should start 18 months ago, or about 2 years ago now, I was approached by John Chau, because of my work. John Chau came to me and he handed me this huge packet, of papers that he had put together, like this big report. And, he told me he had been praying for the Sentinelese people for many years already. I met him at a linguistics school that he was training at up in Canada. That was where I was working for that week. And so he had done linguistics training because he wanted to be able to learn to assimilate to their language and their culture, and B, he wanted to be able to translate the Bible for them. And he asked me, the purpose of that interaction, he was asking me if my organization, Pioneer Bible Translators, would send him to this area, would kind of be his backing organization. And we had a conversation about it, and it didn't work out. But in that conversation, it was interesting. He had heard about my husband and the work that my husband has done and the various, so-called first contacts that he's had with different tribes out in Papua New Guinea and in many other places of the world, and had asked if I would introduce him to my husband so that he could learn from him. So they ended up going on to become, little adventure buddies in the Cascade Mountains and stuff like this. But I was, of course, when an acquaintance or a friend passes, there's obviously a hurt and,
of course, yeah.
I don't know, this bit of like depression that you can't, there's no way around it. But then, of course, that was compounded by then seeing what was said about him, not only by like non-Christian community, but by the Christian community.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and I don't really care, I guess, like what the non-Christian community thought of it. I don't expect someone to understand how beautiful Jesus is if you don't know him. I don't expect you to follow his rules. I don't expect you to get it. And that's fine with me. I don't, I will, do my part in loving God and loving people as well as possible. But I can't force somebody to, see what I see. So I guess the counterpoint of that was then that some of the Christian church, I think was Brutus in Julius Caesar.
Yeah.
The one that's supposed to be too brute, like they turned, like for some reason, Christians are one of the only army that like shoots its own soldiers while they're down.
Jeez.
And, I couldn't help but think through all of it, that the rooster just crowed after that moment. And maybe it was because of lack of understanding or lack of information. And so I do kind of want to share the information I have and then maybe hope that the Christian community would come to a different understanding of the incident.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah.
So what I saw all of this, not realizing that you personally knew this person or anything like that, but I just saw it happening kind of as an outsider. And I was also shocked at the news because I did see a lot of people on various social media and even news sites or even like comments on the news articles or something like that. And the general consensus from non-Christians was like, oh, well, what do you expect when you approach people who are historically violent at outsiders or something like that? And I saw almost the exact same thing from the Christian community, which is unfortunate because, although as Christians, we're supposed to operate within the world. We're not supposed to be a part of the world, and our values are certainly different. And it was actually a real shame to see the way,
very disappointing.
Yeah, very disappointing to see the way a lot of Christians treated this news story, especially considering just that it's a person that died.
He's a human being. Yeah.
A small amount of compassion would be expected from anybody, but a major amount of compassion would be expected from a Christian who would, if they were correctly assessing the situation, they would see somebody who in the image of God was killed apart from what he was doing in anything. Like that's a terrible thing. So, so that's kind of, and maybe I'm missing some of the other things that were said by the Christian community, or did you see anything else?
I think you kind of gave a good summary. It was just, there was a lot of even super, like, say, conservative evangelical pastors, well-known authors saying things like, I don't question his motives, I question his method. As if anybody could have done better and would have been willing to. Like, that's, there's literally no one willing to go to this place. As far as I'm concerned, John Chau was the most loving and courageous man that was alive on the earth at that time. And And yeah, so that was really my, I think because our culture is becoming so polarized, divided, all that, I think more and more Christians are starting to either A, jump ship to try to look, we want to appear loving, or we want to appear sophisticated, or we want to appear, we want good standing with the people around us. And so if the whole world is saying, yuck, look at that idiot who was trying to force his beliefs on the Sentinelese people, I think it's very tempting for many Christians, even like I said, well-known authors and pastors, to point the finger and say, yeah, I'm not like him. I wouldn't do that.
Right.
I think motives were good. They know they should throw him a bone, so they do. But then the very next sentence is, but I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done what he did. Exactly like Peter saying, well, maybe that Christ guy is good, but I'm not with him. I'm not exactly with him. And so, and just a lack of information and, I don't know, all of that kind of has been building up in me, and I'm, excited to kind of just be talking about it.
I wonder if before we dive in, because I'd love to hear just give us the facts that they're not knowing, give us the details that people aren't aware of. Some of these same guys love Jim Elliot and talk about him. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm like, well, then why don't you criticize Jim Elliot and say, well, what'd you expect? And these people are violent and they love Jim Elliot. Yet they look at this guy and go, well, why'd you do this? Well, cause they needed the gospel. I wonder about, and here's the thing. If even one person in that area wanted to hear about Jesus, do we not go? Cause we say, well, but they're violent and I don't want to force. I mean, thank God Paul did not say, oh, I don't want to force my beliefs on these people. I'm just going to hold it in. Cause I don't want to be, like that. I don't want to force myself. Thank God he didn't do that. I wouldn't be a Christian if he did that. So.
Right.
I don't. So good point. What details are we? What's some of the stuff that maybe we should know to go? Okay, because he was a human. He's made in the image of God. You knew him. What should we know?
Okay, so firstly, he was not an idiot at all. He was not uninformed. He was not unaware. He knew that everybody who even accidentally sets foot near this island has been killed. Okay. He knew that. In that packet that he handed me, he had 1,000 contingency plans, what to do even in case of his death. And, he had multiple, he had contingency plans as far as, it was amazing. This guy was thorough. He had been making trips I'll start with the education actually. As I mentioned, he had been going to linguistics school and anthropology classes and stuff like that. He also he learned bush medicine so that he would be able to help them with childbirth and bush medicine type stuff. Just, interesting things that, likely their infant mortality rate is 75% or higher, as is normal with secluded areas like that. And so he wanted to help them on even on that basic level. So he had learned that. He had sought out advice and mentorship from a huge slew of people who have done it before. For one person that you guys might know of, Don Richardson, who wrote the book Peace Child.
Yeah.
Okay.
He had sought out him for advice and consultation. And he had also sought out others, my husband included, trying to figure out how he can remotely, or how he can, navigate remote geography, how he can get there, and he had been making multiple trips to India to make friends and make acquaintances and make a network that would help him get there.
Okay.
And then also a big thing in the news was that they weren't they could die of any disease. But in addition to his medical training, he went and got vaccinated for everything you can think of, everything he could find, and then quarantined himself before going out there.
Wow.
So,
the
he really
complaint, sorry, the complaint you're talking about is people were saying that he could bring kind of a foreign or white person disease to the island, right? Yeah.
Right. And sure, that could be a valid concern, but not in his mind, it's either, well, do I risk that or do I risk them dying without the gospel, and what's worse? And so he did. He took every precaution he could. Every step that he took was to love the Sentinelese people. He wasn't doing this. In fact, this is something that the news doesn't realize, I guess, or people don't realize, is that he was going out there knowing that he would never likely ever again talk to his family or friends, because it's not like he has a computer or cell phone that's able to make calls out there. He was going out there intending to live with them for 20 years without contact to anybody, or until the job's done.
Wow.
He was giving up everything, anything that you and me have ever dreamed of for a life, whether it be a career, a spouse, like any of these things that kind of go along with the American dream or whatever you want to call it, or anybody's dream. He gave that all up, including his relationships, to go and live with the Sentinelese.
I don't know this guy, but I already love him.
Right?
This just sounds like, okay, so he was being a genuine, authentic Christian, loving people, and the media and everyone decided to take pot shots after he's already passed, which just sounds so despicable to me. Just, oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, and he knew, like I said, he knew he could die. And so what's amazing to me, what's, I guess, inspiring to me, is that he didn't give his life for the gospel. He gave his life for obedience. He gave his life for the opportunity to share the gospel.
Yeah, for the very potential of spreading the gospel, not even ensuring that it would work. Gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah. And then here we are in America, like, I don't know if I should share it with that person because they might think I'm weird.
Yeah, serious.
Yeah, I say, I like Russell Moore. He talks about let the gospel be weird. Because I've had people go, you believe, he rose from the dead. I'm like, I believe way crazier stuff than that. I'm like, I believe a prophet got called bald and called bears down on kids. I believe in a virgin birth. I believe in these creatures in Ezekiel with multiple eyes teleporting. I can go, wait, just let it be. And don't make excuses for the gospel. Just let it be what it is. Don't go, no, don't sanitize it. Go, no. In the New Testament, men and women died for this. And Michelle sounds like your friend, who we should see as our brother, not as some distant entity, went and was obedient. And I just am still shocked that he got I'm almost shocked by how much attack he got, because I go, we've been doing mission work for years, right, guys? Like, this isn't new. It's not like for years and years we've been doing mission work. It's been the same thing. I don't know why this is a shock that he went there, and they're almost acting appalled, like, how could he do this? Missionaries have been going for years. This is the new thing. Why do you think it is he got so much attention?
I think, why did he get so much attention? Is it
a new, because I know we have the 24-hour news cycle now. I know social media's changed. I know everything's about having a hot take now. I mean,
I think all those things play into it, but I also think he was an easy target because he was dead.
Wow. Ugh.
This makes me, I want to go train right now. I want to go punch someone. This just irritates. I'm pissed. I want to go punch someone. I'm going to do kickboxing tomorrow. This is cause he is I've never met this dude, and he just sounds like a guy I would admire. He sounds cool. I mean, he lived out. I mean, isn't that our faith? Isn't this, willing to give our lives? I mean, the New Testament, they wouldn't even think this is shocking.
Right. Yeah. And it was interesting because he had to break laws. Now, that's not even that bizarre. I want to say most missionaries I know are having to break laws because, of the countries that they live in.
Right, of course.
John Chau had to break a lot of laws, and kind of laws that most missionaries don't have to break as far as just territory. Don't come into these waters. Don't set foot on that certain island. He had to break laws like that. I think that was another factor.
My dad smuggled Bibles into another country, and he was on a donkey, so I made jokes about him hauling ass. He didn't think it was funny because he's my dad. I thought it was cool, but no, it just, this is the thing I don't get. All right, Sean and Michelle, you probably, I assume he's pretty well known. The guy from Penn and Teller, the magician guys.
Yeah.
I think it was Penn he talked about, and this is actually so crazy to me. He's not a Christian. He said this. He goes, if you really believe there's a hell and that if I don't know Jesus, I'm going to die and go there, how much do you have to hate me to not share the gospel
Ugh.
with me? And this is an atheist going, no, if you believe this, look at the stakes. Look at the stakes of this. And here's a guy who knows those stakes, and we're criticizing him. Like, I feel awkward at work when my coworker goes, oh, I hear you're a pastor. I'm like, I'd rather type. But this guy was living it. I don't know. And this is so, I'm going to be honest. What you're telling me is 100% different than what I heard from the media. This is 100% different.
Yeah.
Is there anything else the media missed or?
Yes. Oh, one of the most beautiful parts, actually. Interesting. So he had tried to go onto the island one day, and he was met with arrows, and he was carrying his Bible in front of his body, and the arrow hit his Bible. And so he ran back off of the island, and they had destroyed his canoe, or his kayak. He had a foldable kayak, and he swam back to the boat, the fishing boat that was offshore. And that was quite a ways, if I understand right. And they said, you're back and you have an arrow in your Bible. Does this mean abort mission? He said, no, I'm going back tomorrow.
Wow.
Jeez.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah. And so then here's the crazy part. He goes back the next day, and they peacefully invite him onto their island and into their hut.
Wow.
And they sat with him for hours, and he sat there and he journaled. And this is how we know this, is that he sat there and he journaled. And he had two journals. He had what he called a pre-contact journal and a post-contact journal. And he journaled in his pre-contact journal. And then after hours, I don't know exactly how long, he swam back out to the fishing boat with his pre-contact journal, gave it to them, and said, "Take off, I'm staying." I've been like he thought he'd been accepted to them. Yeah,
they didn't give any of these freaking
say,
details.
They didn't say any of that on the news.
All they were talking about was this and Donald Trump's toupee. I didn't hear any of this crap.
Right. And so then he went back onto the island. And we don't know exactly when it happened, because I think it was 2 mornings later. It was either 2 or 3 mornings later. His body was seen being dragged along the beach.
Wow.
So we don't know. Like, he maybe stayed with them for a couple days. He maybe, we don't know. Maybe it was that day. Maybe it was later. But either way, he was peaceably invited into their hut with them.
That's crazy.
Alright, so, cause I don't want to be disconnected from this, cause this was someone you cared about, someone we'll see in the new heaven and earth, which is awesome. Yeah. That's something we can look forward to. You and your husband having interactions with him. How are you guys with it now? I mean, are you at peace? Is there still a little bit of pain talking about? Cause I don't want to, just for a podcast, skip over that. How are you guys doing with it?
I'll be honest, the first week or 2 after his death, I was, God, what's the right word? Angry, what's the word? I was obviously comforted. I know that I was being comforted, but I was also angry.
Infuriated, super pissed, what?
I kept asking God, how could you, how could you let that happen to, like I said earlier, like, God, this might have been the only man willing to die for these people.
Yeah.
Why didn't you save him miraculously or change his mind, or, why didn't you do something? Because he seems to be the only one willing to die for those people. And this was the only stop. Now there's, increased, heightened security, heightened everything around those people, and they're likely going to die out, very soon, within a few generations. And so it looks like they will never be contacted. And the one guy that was willing to put it all on the line, was killed. And so, the first week or 2, I was very upset. And somehow, like I said, was feeling comfort, in God's presence about it. And then since then, I feel like it's gotten a lot better. My husband likewise kind of, went through the grieving process, and, we've had ups and downs, but, I would say there are really interesting things now, that we can see that, on some levels, God is using it. And I don't think we'll ever know fully, of course, until we're on the other side. But But we definitely do see ways that God has been using John Chau and his story in ways that we couldn't have imagined.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. It's encouraging to us as a pastor. There are times where I preach or speak and wonder if it's ever hitting people. So for me to hear someone have this love, and it's a Christ-like love, it's commendable, it's nothing we should shy away from or be embarrassed. If anything, it encourages us. This builds me up, and he's someone who now that I know the story, I'm grateful because I can tell my kids about this and be able to speak that and tell the new heaven, new earth when we do meet him. And I can shake his hand and go, hey, I talked to your friend, the mother of all dragons, about this, and we had discussion with you, and I got mad and inappropriate, and, it's good to finally meet you, because one day he will, that's the cool thing, one day we'll see that he was vindicated, that he wasn't foolish to follow Christ.
Yeah.
100% we'll see, okay, we were justified for what he did, we were justified to follow Christ, and that,
I'm encouraged considering everything he did in preparation for this, and, just like you said, the courage he had to go do this, knowing that he, in the best case scenario, wouldn't talk to anybody for 20 years. I'm so encouraged that I'm like, wow, this guy is a pretty awesome guy, but it encourages me even more the message that he had to share. Like
Absolutely.
The importance of Christ and the importance of the gospel. Like, John Chau sounds amazing, and the Savior that he was representing sounds even more amazing. And I think that's super cool, and I'm sad that the Christian community didn't come away from this whole situation with that. But like you said, you know, God may be doing things on a different timeline, and we know for sure that it's going to be super cool to talk to him in the new heaven and earth, and find out from him exactly like what was accomplished because of his work. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose.
How dare you go there? Oh my!
That's awesome.
No, it's crazy because Jim Elliot. Jim Elliot is one of the first guys I heard of, and then what his wife did after was amazing. And those are people I wonder would we criticize them nowadays for what they did. So
yeah.
Gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
See, the Dragon Lady is always a good guest. Anything you got anything for us, Sean, or any questions before we close out? Or
no, thank you so much for coming on again. This was really good. 2 more of us are informed, and we have at least 4 listeners, maybe 6 listeners. But my hope is that people who do hear this can maybe go out and represent a different side of the story than what was represented in the media, and also that they would be excited to share the news of the Savior who John Chau was representing when he was going to do this. So that's about it.
Yeah.
All right. So just so that she's not just hanging out waiting.
Yeah,
drinking
hang on the line
Modelo.
for just a second, Michelle.
Yeah.
This has been Tales from the Ditch. Please send us any emails for questions, comments, concerns at talesfromtheditch@gmail.com, and zip it up.
Zip it out.